Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week, but in this case, that happened throughout the year. First of all, happy holidays to everybody listening on audio form and everybody watching right now on YouTube. This is the annual show. We started a tradition last year. You know, last year I was in the Dungeons of Hip Hop, aka my garage, with a hoodie and a do-rag on, bringing in the holiday cheer. Today, I then came up in the world, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube and all of that. But, you know, a little festive for the people who are watching. But this is the end of the year, final episode for 2024, maybe, where I break down what I think are some of the best albums of the year. Albums, mixtapes, projects, you know, because people release EPs, mixtapes, albums. I incorporate all of them into that. First and foremost, the YouTube channel, man, has been a blessing this year, trying to get to 500 and now trying to get to 1,000. Right now, we are at 800 subscribers on YouTube, which is great. So whether you found this podcast through the shorts I post on YouTube or the other content or the interview I did not too long ago, which maybe there'll be some more, who knows, maybe not, who knows, who could say. But at the end of the day, you know, I appreciate everybody who's come through, checked out the podcast. Definitely people who have shared the podcast, who supported the podcast, Patreon supporters. Shout out to you. Those who want to come through on CashApp. All of that stuff goes to the production of the podcast. Let's just be real. You know what I'm saying? That's where it should go for the most part. And most content creators do that. You know what I'm saying? And what you have to do as a content creator, you have to create content that people like. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we do here at Hip Hop Now Podcast. Also, know there's a very special episode coming up on Christmas Eve, exclusively on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. It's already on the channel where you can go ahead and hit that notification button or bell or whatever to be notified when it goes live. But you should do that in general. So when you know there's new content right here on the channel, you know, you get a little notification through YouTube on your phone or email or however way you have it set up, you know what I'm saying, to stay locked in. Now, let's get right into the business. If you are new here, first of all, welcome, but also know when it comes to my best of the year, I listen to a number of albums. Like, it's so many albums that I listen to. A lot of it is based off of things I'm looking forward to, plus things that, you know, I've seen a lot of buzz on social media and hip hop media in general. So I try to check out everything. And obviously, I don't get a chance to listen to everything. But for me, those are the key factors. What I'm checking for and what the people checking for in general. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't see, you know, some of your favorites here, it doesn't mean that I didn't hear it. Doesn't mean that it ain't dope. It just means that it didn't make my list. Because there's so many albums in 2024 that dropped where it became difficult towards the end to like file it down. Like, yo, is this better than this? Is it better than that? So what I typically do to get it down to at least 15 albums, 10 being albums I think are good that you should check out, and then my top 5. And to get it down to those 15, they just have to be special in some way, to me, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of that has to do with, it could be traditional beats and bars, and maybe you just had the best beats and bars album of the year. Or it could be incredibly creative albums where I'm like, man, this is just so dope. I love the theme behind this. It could be something new. Somebody's doing something new in hip hop, and that's why I dug it. And it could just be in general incredible music, not just yo, where them bars at. If it ain't got them bars, it ain't in there. Nah, honestly, my list is varied because that's what my listening style is. So even though I may check out everybody just to see who's dope or not, my list really reflects my taste, right? Like what the variety in my taste, I should say. So we're gonna do something a little bit different, and maybe this could be a part of the tradition because we're going to add a honorable mention. Didn't make the 15, but had it, it probably would have placed top 5. And that honorable mention is Stove God Cooks. Stop calling me. I'm cooking. Okay. um, this was an album that Stove God, or kind of like an EP, it's kind of short, but a project that was released by Stove God Cooks through the site even.com. And the only reason, because it was supplanted in my top 5, the only reason why I didn't include it is because it's not really available anymore. It's not available on streaming services as of this recording, right? It's not available on the site where I got it from. You know what I'm saying? Even.com. And it's due to some copyright issues. So it's not an album I could recommend to you and you go, oh word, it was that crazy. Let me go and download it or let me go stream it. Right now, as of this recording, you can't do either. But just to let y'all know, I had been lukewarm on Stove God singles, right? I might like a joint here, may not really feel a joint there. His features sometimes were hit or miss. Sometimes they were great. Sometimes they were just kind of like, or frustrating because he didn't have a project out. That's why it was frustrating. But when I got my hands on this joint, it's Stop Calling Me, I'm Cooking Side A. So maybe there'll be a side B. When I heard it, I was like, man, this feels like what we were waiting for. This feels like Reasonable Drought's successor in some kind of ways. And I don't know if people will ever get to hear it, to be honest. So that's my honorable mention of 2024. Let's get into the top 10 best albums of 2024. Before starting off at the top, Dave East and Scram Jones, For the Love. Not the Dave East albums that you're used to. In a lot of ways, I think is better because he's doing something different. They did an excellent job with the music and the 90s feel. Martin, Living Single, like it's all these things. And it's not just 90s, but there's some beats from, love records from back in like LTD, Jerry Osborne. I know his name is Jeffrey, but you remember Kings of Comedy. That's how he said it. That's how Cedric said it. Next up, Huss Kingpin and Ninth Wonder Super Goat. Man, when I tell y'all, this was in my top 5 for like the majority of the year because I was just listening to it over and over again. Tyler the Creator, Chromacopia, was chilling in my top 5 for a little bit. I tapered off with my listening, but a very dope album from Tyler the Creator. If you like his music, if you like a variety in your hip hop, it's not straightforward, but I thought it was pretty dope. I Am God and Klepto, Bloodstained Suede Part 2. They did a Part 1, obviously, and then they did a more, like a bonus joint. But Part 2 was my favorite because there was damn near no skips. And it was incredible bar work as usual from I Am God. Benny the Butcher, Everybody Can't Go. Now that's crazy because I was kind of disappointed when this came out. But then later, I found myself listening and listening and listening and listening over and over again. Then he dropped another project, Summertime Butch. And even though it was cool, I still was more on the side of what I liked with Everybody Can't Go. And then he dropped the album with 38 Special, Stabbed and Shot Part 2. And even with that, I felt like 38 Special was better than Benny on it as far as the bars, respectfully. But Everybody Can't Go, I just kept running it back, especially during the summer. You know, that bronze joint was crazy. It's a couple of joints on there. So Lupe Fiasco Samurai. Man, this is the Lupe I like. This is the pocket. This is the types of beats. This is types of hooks. This album just feels good. It feels good. And I'm a Food and Liquor fan, the first one, and the second one kind of sort of. But I like that Lupe. You know, you don't have to go all the way with the commercial ride and stuff like that because I like the cool as well. And there's a lot of that Lupe in there. But I felt like this was a well-rounded project from Lupe Fiasco. Freeway and Jake One Stimulus Package 2. Man, they did it again. Stimulus package, whenever it dropped, I can't remember, maybe 2016 or something like that, was definitely probably in my best of the year when it dropped. Well, I remember when they announced that we're going to drop a stimulus package 2, I was like, can they do it again after all this time? They did it again. Don't sleep on Freeway. He got a dope, like his mixtape joint is damn near flawless. So check that out. Blue and Exile. Love the Ominous World. Blue dropped a lot of projects. This is hands down my favorite out of what he dropped. Blue and Exile cannot miss. Like when they get together and make music. Now, don't kill me, but I'm just talking about the chemistry. The chemistry is like Dr. Dre and Snoop. The chemistry is like Nas and Premier. The chemistry is like Pete Rock and I was gonna say Pete Rock and CL Smooth. No, not that one. Pete Rock and Common. They just Blue and Exile just had this perfect combination of beats and rhymes, and it feels like they know each other enough to make great music. So that was another great album. One that dropped recently, Sky Zoo, Keep Me Company. Sky Zoo is he almost never miss when it comes to his projects. Obviously, he has projects I like more than others, but this one is grown man music. Okay. He got a song with Chuck D on the hook. It's perfect. It's chef kiss. It's perfect usage of Chuck D's voice, his rhyme style. It just works. And he got this one song called Record Store Day that when I heard it, I was like, why hasn't any other MC done this? Now I know you might be saying, oh nah, you know what I'm saying? Lord God, the infamous did it back in two. Nigga, I don't care. This is hot. What Sky Zoo did with this. And the album in general is like pretty dope. Like if you like what some people call adult contemporary hip hop, not saying that you can't be younger and dig it, it's just the vibe, right? The vibe is really chill, but he's still nice with the bars as always. And I feel like it's a nice complete project. And lastly, Freddie Gibbs, You Only Die Once. This album gets better and better as I listen to it. I'm a big Freddie Gibbs fan. I love the theme of it being a sequel to You Only Live Once, which was a dope project, and it was more so on the good side of things. You know, like when you got the good angel on your shoulder. Well, this album, You Only Die Once, is like the devil on the side, and the devil skits they're just hilarious, and they fit perfectly. And I like how Freddie Gibbs speaks to a lot of what has occurred between albums, you know, because he was catching some L's on social media, but he ain't never stopped rapping dope, and this is a very dope album. So there you have it. Those are 10 albums as far as variety goes that I think you should check out because they're pretty dope. A lot of those albums probably made a ton of people's top 5 lists, but now it's time to get into mine. Here are my top 5 albums, projects, EPs, mixtapes, whatever it may be, of 2024. Starting at the very top, and I'm gonna just say, y'all, the West Coast did their thing this year because I can't believe it. Kendrick Lamar, GNX, right? Sure, I'm a Kendrick fan, and for those who are keeping score, I'm also a Drake fan. I don't know if I'm a fan anymore. Not that fan, but you know what I mean. Mainly because it's like I just want him to stop. The battle's over. He lost. But coming off a historical battle in hip hop between these two that far exceeded my expectations as far as output, songs, the hype around a lot of these things. And the results, if you were like hibernating from January of 2024 to now, Kendrick won. Let's just not debate it. It happened. I don't care if you don't like Not Like Us or you don't like it anymore. He won the battle. Okay. Just go listen to Meet the Grams. That did happen. Okay. But Kendrick surprise dropped, popped out, if you will, with this album called GNX. Shout out to the homie Ak. We did a review and reaction video, which did very well for my channel. So check it out. To this album. And obviously a lot of that was fresh for us because we had listened. I gave it my good 3 listens. And I like it a lot, and I like it even more the more I listen to it. I probably have 2 skips. I skip Peekaboo and GNX because they just, I don't know, something about it I don't really like. Sometimes I let them rock, depending on the mood. But for the most part, I like the other songs more than those 2. But in general, what I like about this album is it's West Coast sound now, not West Coast 90s. And I love what y'all already know. I love the West Coast from the 90s, but it's West Coast now, right? It's California now. So it's a different style, it's different rhyme patterns for Kendrick that, some may or may not like. You know what I'm saying? Old Kendrick is on songs like The Heart Part 6. That's the Kendrick right? But everything else, like Squabble Up and all of that, is more so um like Hey Now, like it's more so LA and Oakland, and it's that whole vibe basically of people, like YG who make music, who he kind of makes music in that sound in some ways. And a lot of artists from the West Coast do. So what I liked about it more than just that was that I was getting into something that felt new to me because I wasn't really checking for a lot of these cats. And also, and I think Not Like Us kind of primed us for an album like this. But from songs like Squabble Up to Reincarnated, Whacked Out Murals, you know what I'm saying? The Heart Part 6, Luther, Dodger Blue, even Gloria at the end of the album. It's just an album that's packed full of flavor, West Coast culture, Easter eggs, shots fired at other rappers, club vibe, radio vibe, crip walk vibe, like all of it. And what I like about the Heart Part 6 the most is him telling that TDE Rise to Fame story because I just like the way he laid it out. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it's a great album. As it relates to his discography, I can't say I would add it to my top 3 because Kendrick has a pretty flawless catalog, in my opinion. But we like some more than others. And I feel like the 3 that I like the most, GNX is probably right behind those. So there you have it. Next up, out of the TDE camp, Doshi, Alligator Bites Never Heal. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. When I first hit play, like first of all, I saw her on IG, right? And I forget what song it was, but I was like, damn, who's this? She's kind of dope. But you never know. Somebody drop a full project, that might be the only song that's good. So I listened, the first time, and when I reviewed it for my channel, like similar to the Benny the Butcher thing, I was like, I like it, but I feel like it tapers off at the end a little bit. But I feel like wasn't adjusted to Doshi's style that much because she's similar to Kendrick. Like she just does a bunch of different things and her vocal range changes while she's rhyming. Is some of it is a little Nicki Minaj as far as like how she changes her voice and stuff like that. Nicki never really spit like this. I'm sorry, Barb's or whatever y'all. But she just didn't. I mean, she okay. Let me give her this credit. She did somewhat in the very beginning, but Doshi is a little bit different. I think Doshi is what Nicki Minaj could be when it comes to the full range of what she does. That could be controversial. I'm not saying she has better work. She really only has one project out. So Nicki Minaj has done what she's done, but I kind of feel like Doshi's like an extension from that tree from a respectable standpoint. And I feel like I'm more into what Doshi's doing on this album, and I like it because there's some storytelling, there's some bars, there's a snarkiness about boom bap and what people want. But she got records where she can rap, right? So it's a very dope project. If you haven't heard of her, she just did a Tiny Desk. You can check out the project. You can watch the Tiny Desk and check out the album. But I think it's one of the best of the year, to be honest, because now I let it rock all the way through. And I'm like, damn, I didn't like this the first three times I listened. So, not the whole project, just a couple of songs towards the end. There's some songs I do skip. But I think it's a complete body of work. Next up on the West Coast, the Dog Pound. We All We Got. Man, if there's a number one, just based off of how much I played the album, it's this one. I did not expect it, but it was it was almost like West Coast G Funk reborn, right? The Chronic style, dog food, doggy style. It was like that sound reborn for now. And it's so West Coast, but it's like West Coast old school. So where Kendrick was a newer sound for the West Coast, Dog Pound took it back to what we knew and loved from the Death Row days. This album was on Death Row Records, if you didn't know. Snoop owns it now. And when I tell y'all, man, like song after song, especially during the summer, it's sunny, you got your little t-shirt on, you got the little sunroof. I can't drop the top. I know I look like I could drop the top if you're watching on YouTube, but no, we got a regular car. We're regular folks, okay? Uh, but I just remember playing this album over and over and over again. Snoop did an excellent job. I think he's executive producer of this album, just making sure that they kept the sound they got famous off of. And there's so many songs, and at the end there's a DJ Premier song where they just wild out, and it's all the Death Row artists. Lady of Rage, hands down, has the best verse. It's for some people it may take you out of that whole West Coast G Funk sound, but I think that song was supposed to be like Stranded on Death Row off the Chronic. Even though Dr. Dre produced it, it was a very East Coast sounding beat. It's just that Dr. Dre did it, so it was like, oh, whatever. So this song, Premier does it, but um, I think it fits because it's the end of the album. You know what I'm saying? You've already got your West Coast feel, so very dope album. Next up, now this one will probably be in everybody's top 5, top 10, nominated for a Grammy. You know them, you love them. Common and Pete Rock, The Auditorium Volume 1. I'm not going to hold y'all. When they were releasing singles, especially Wise Up and Dreaming, I was like, this album can't be whack. It's impossible. If this is the feeling, this is what it is. And this is, this sound is the shot for the East Coast. We got one, okay? Even though Common from Midwest, but he got one, P Rock from Mount Vernon. You know what I'm saying? And I just remember when the album came out, and I'm not gonna hold y'all, right? Sometimes Common annoys me, and not so much the rapper, Common, but I'm talking about like the voiceover artists and sometimes the actor. Sometimes he can really annoy me. So when he started with from the stellar regions of the soul, like, nigga, what are you talking about? Like, just shut up and start. But I don't care. It works because this album, from track one all the way to the end, this don't have no skips. No skips to me. This is an album that, not right now, because I know y'all fast, not right now, we'll be calling it a classic. Why not? Why not? This was so dope. Why not? No skips. That's how I feel. No skips on this project. Uh, Pasta New shows up at, rhyming on this joint, and it is fitting. You know what I'm saying? It's just a very dope album, and I'm glad to see Pete Rock get his just due for still producing dope beats today. And what I liked about what Pete Rock was doing was Common and Pete Rock said, starting with Common, Common said that he was like during the lockdown, he was just listening to a lot of old school hip hop, like exclusively, like 90s, and really feeling charged by hip hop's history, and in particular a specific time where the beats were a certain way for the East Coast and the rhymes and the bars were a certain way. And I kind of feel like what Pete Rock was able to do was to capture that feeling. Like a song like Wise Up feels like it sounds like, oh, they just sampled The Bridge Is Over, MC Shan and Marley Marl. But no, it's like it's that, but it's flipped. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a very dope song, just like most of the songs on this album. And sometimes you can have albums that have familiar samples and they could just feel like, oh, you just retreading, roads that rappers and producers have already crossed. But in this instance, Pete Rock did so much with the production to freshen up some classic sounds and samples and stuff like that using hip hop that it sounds brand new. It sounds fresh. And that's why it's, in my top 5 of the year. Ran it back so many times. It was, because it was just so dope. I felt proud to be a hip hop participant. All right. And my last out of my top 5 of 2024, hot off the presses. I probably listened to it about 6 or 7 times, which is crazy uh, already as of this recording. Probably more now. If you're from the future, get your ass out of here, man. You already know. You already got whatever else is new. But that's Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre's Missionary. Missionary being a title that follows up Doggy Style, where Doggy Style is like considered grimy and a certain sound from the 90s, G Funk era and all that good stuff. Missionary is where they are now. I'm just going to service you, young lady. Like that's what they're saying, I guess. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know. But I took it that Missionary was going to be different as a result. And when I press play, it's very different and it's very dope. Now, I will say there are songs that I'm kind of like, yeah, I might skip that. I might let it rock, depending on the mood. But as a project, as a complete album, let's just start with Snoop. Snoop, when he's with Dre, he's always at his best. Now, some of you haven't heard a Snoop album since Doggy Style. So for you, this album may be disappointing, and who knows, maybe you don't feel like Snoop sounds like that. But for those who have checked out Snoop albums, especially Blue Carpet Treatment, um, will know throughout Snoop's career, wherever he would link with Dr. Dre, it was like magic every time. So now you have the first album since the 90s, and I think is like more than 30 years, something like that. Is it? Yeah, maybe, probably. But you have him linking up with Dr. Dre's, and his rhymes are what you expect from Snoop. He's saying the right things. He's saying it in the right styles. He even have some bars that made me go, "Oh, okay, Snoop. Didn't expect you to get that crazy because what he said, like my name is the brand or something like that. I'm messing it up, but he said something really dope. And I just feel like he was in the pocket for everything. There's songs, on there like the joint with Jelly Roll and Tom Petty that I'm not necessarily mad at. I thought I was gonna like it at all, but I was like, oh, that's cool. Um, then there's a song with Sting that's the one where I'm just like, did y'all really need this? But I get it. You know what I'm saying? They're superstars. They're probably gonna go on tour. It's probably gonna be in stadiums. And when you hear those two records, you see some people who will definitely love them. But even without those two records, he got a joint with Method Man that I like. He got a joint with 50 Cent and Eminem that I think is dope or cool. At first it was kind of iffy, but I think 50 showed up for sure. Eminem is cool. I'm glad with Eminem they did not switch to the angry carnival beats that he always just like, yo, put that angry carnival on right here. No, rhyme over the beat that's here, dog. His verse was cool. And probably my favorite joint on here is Out of the Blue. It just energizes me when I hear it. Second to that would be the joint Hard Knocks. So it's a very dope album. Now, when we talk about, I'm starting to sweat, y'all, with this with this furred hat on. Let's make it quick. But the same thing I said about Pete Rock and using samples you recognize through hip hop's history, whether it's hip hop or a soul sample that was sampled a lot within hip hop. Dr. Dre did the same thing. There's a song called Shangri-La that uses the Ahmad Jamal sample that Jay Dilla famously, he ain't the only one, but famously used on De La Soul's Stakes is High. And at first when it started, I'm like, okay, do I really want to hear Snoop over this? Is it going to work? And it works. And a lot of the records work because when I tell y'all, Dr. Dre assured, and he does it every time, it's like the Dr. Dre seal of approval. The crispiness of sound in this album, from the vocals sounding very clear and crisp and taking advantage of their different vocal textures, you know what I'm saying? From Snoop to Dre to Method Man, 50 to like everybody, you know what I'm saying? But especially the beats, because shout out to Kill, because he made a great point when we were talking about it, is that even though it's clear and clean and crispy, it still knocks as if it's dirty. And for those who don't know, what do you mean clean, clear, and clean and crispy, right? If you go listen to Nelly's first album, I feel like that sounds phenomenal. I may not like every song on there, but it just sounds good. That's clean and crispy, right? I said cream. That's noosh. That's a noosh. Okay, relax. But you say like dirty, then you talk about like Into the 36 Chambers. Now it may not be that dirty, but the bass, the drums, everything hits the way it should hit as a hip hop fan, but at the same time it's pristine. It's like Gangster and the Gentleman in the Suit kind of thing, right? Both. I think that was enough analogies. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 hip hop projects of the year, along with the good 10. The other 10 that I mentioned, check them out if you haven't heard them. What's on your list? What are some albums that weren't on my list that you're like, oh, well, here's my top 5? Leave them in the comment section below. I won't stop listening to hip hop. So if you put something in there that I'm like, oh man, I missed that, let me check it out, I definitely will. And I definitely respond. Happy holidays to everybody. Subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and we almost there. And my hat is falling off. so again, happy holidays to everybody. And please remember, I'm not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.